Well, today we welcome Amil Shivji, the director of the Tug of War, which featured at TIFF. And of course, I'm with Minority Review. I'm Swati Sharan. I'm so happy to be here today. So what we'll first do is basically, I guess I'll just give the audience a little bit of a background about the film, and then I'll ask the questions. Okay, so what we have is that Tug of War is a 1950s period film about black and Indian freedom fighters in Zanzibar during a colonial period. So it also points out to the existing social mores of that time and within the context of the Indian culture over there as well. So I just wanted to ask, what is your background, Amilji?
Yeah, I'm Tanzanian, born and raised in
Mm,
Dar es Salaam on the
mm,
mainland, and four generations deep. As I
yeah.
didn't know. Sorry,
Oh, pardon me?
four generations deep, Tanzanian, and I
Okay.
think a fair guess would be India would be the original place, but we can't really trace to where exactly. I think a good guess would be Gujarat, because that's where
Yeah.
a lot of migration happened into East Africa. But
Okay.
yeah, it's I think with Zanzibar specifically, it being such a hub of different cultures and different people, I don't think the culture ever stuck to one race or ethnicity, and rather spoke
Hmm.
to so many different cultures that kind of built the Zanzibari
Hmm.
identity, which is one I
Huh.
kind of identify with more. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then how did you get into film direction?
It was all by fluke.
Yeah.
I was madly in love with writing ever since I was
Yeah.
in high school, and I
Yeah.
thought a more sane route would be in journalism. And I thought I would go to Cape Town and study journalism, etc., etc. And then my father was an academic, made sure I applied to more than one university, just for safety's sake. And long story short, I ended up getting a full scholarship to York University in their film program, which is considerably one of the top 10 in North America. And I thought, oh, yeah, why not? Let's give it a shot. And if I don't like it, I can always go back to Cape Town. And I did it, and I absolutely hated it initially. It was very Eurocentric, still is. And I think I always knew deep down that I wanted to come back to Tanzania, be on the continent. And studying Eurocentric cinema doesn't really give me much of an option of doing work here. So as I was about to transfer back and leave Canada my first year, I bumped into a module on African cinema. And that's where I really
Hmm.
learned about beautiful African movies from the 1960s onwards, third cinema, and a movement of progressive cinema that really spoke to African and Latin American people, essentially from the global south. And that's, I think, was my calling. And I realized that that's what I wanted to do.
Oh, okay. Wow. So then I guess this is based on a novel. So and it seems very accurate in terms of, depicting I guess that lifestyle of people at that point in time. So would you agree or disagree with that in terms of how accurate it was?
Well, I mean, I wasn't there in the 1950s, so it'd be hard to know exact accuracy. But what we did do in order to really, hopefully, try and get as accurate as we could in representation of that time is after
Yeah.
we got the rights to the novel, I was living in Zanzibar researching with my research assistant, who then became the
Mm,
costume designer of the film for over 6 months. And what we were trying
mm,
to prove to ourselves was, first of all, if we had the rights to tell the story, because we come from the mainland, and
mm,
Zanzibar, it has quite a contentious relationship with the mainland. And
mm,
the second thing was to just see if it's even possible to tell the story in 2020, in 2019 at the time, because it's a period drama so in the 1950s, and we didn't have a significantly huge budget. So how could we tell the story at a cost-effective way, but also be able to really represent that time? So the research phase really helped us with that. We went into the archives, we met with elderly people and interviewed them, so both primary and secondary sources of research. And I think what we ended up doing was probably the most powerful of all, that we won the community's trust and confidence. So even when we made the film, it really became a community film. so many people
Mm,
involved. I think my credits are almost 4 or 5 minutes long, just thanking
mm,
people that were involved in the film.
mm. Oh yeah, wow. So then, I guess, going to the idea of trying to recreate authenticity, I'm going to point out to something I observed, which was that I observed there's a lot of old-fashioned Hindi songs playing in the background occasionally. How did you go about finding these old songs?
Yes, so it was tricky. I mean, the reason why I have the Hindi songs, the same reason why I use older Egyptian music, Lebanese music, etc. Because I really feel like this film musically speaks to the melting pot of
Mm,
cultures.
yeah.
And I'm a fanatic when it comes to music. I'm always
Mm,
madly infatuated with older music and older genres. So seeing that already through our research, I realized that it's something that we could also do in the film. And by showing it, it's not just musically nice, but also adds to a
mm,
narrative element in the story. With the
mm,
Bollywood music, I really wanted some of the classics, like the Asha
mm,
Bhosle, Lata
yeah.
Mangeshkar from the 1950s that played in the cinemas. But I'm sure you can guess that it's quite expensive.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was thinking. The very, yeah, very niche songs that you have there. Yeah,
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 very
yeah,
expensive. So what we decided to do is we couldn't afford it. So we decided to
yeah.
work with a Indian composer slash producer who was able
Yeah.
to reference that kind of style and reproduce new music. And for
Mm.
us, that's the stuff we use. There's actually not music that exists in
Yeah.
public domain, but it references a lot of the famous ones.
Oh, okay. So if I understand correctly, it was like, okay, these songs. Yeah, I mean, these songs did actually exist in that period of time, and then the new person recreated that.
Yeah,
Okay.
recreated it
So
in a way that almost gave him a bit more authority creatively, but to
yeah.
reference the time. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Yeah, because that's what I was just thinking that, yeah, I mean, these songs were not necessarily like the so-called, K.L. Sehgal or Lata
yeah,
Mangeshkar period songs, but they certainly were reflecting a certain style that existed at that time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting. So, um, I guess I'm just also wondering then, how have you been received in Tanzania or Zanzibar?
Well, we haven't premiered here yet. We had our
Oh,
world premiere in Toronto, and now we're
okay.
looking for the right time to bring it back home. And it's really people are waiting, they're twiddling their thumbs, waiting to watch the film, and we're
Yeah.
very excited to share it with them. It's just that we do need to raise a bit more finance in order to really have a proper campaign for the film here.
Okay. All right. And is there a release date for India that's been determined yet?
Not yet. We're still looking into distribution out there, and we're more
Mhm.
than open to chatting with distributors because I think it really would have a market in India.
Yeah.
There's especially the coastal culture. So
Yeah.
if you know anyone, do let them know. We're keen on getting the film out there as well.
Okay. Well, audience, I guess you've heard the message. And so if you guys know, then this is how you're going to get to see the film soon.
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
so, yeah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you.